right, to keep up with keeping your lives tight, tight as in being right with the truth of true insight. Who of you want to do things right? Who of you want to truly succeed in attaining all in that which is your need, to be heard by the real answerer of all deeds, the true hearer of all whom pleads? Who of you really want to bow down to the true King of Kings commanding the crown, to worship the one that ever rules alone, commanding everything of creation from the seat of its throne?
To an I-Had moment, the calm before the storm. I want to thank y'all for tuning to our program this evening. I'm your host, Minister Idris Taha, and with me again on the set as always, Brother Fakul Abdul Aziz, the co-host, and with on the set again, the Lord Holy-Apostle Deen Saleem, Lord, Mr. Prophet of Ahezaah. May Ahezaah's peace and other blessings be within about your presence. We want to thank you, audience, for tuning in as always, because without you, there is no us. All praise is due to our Lord Most High in and of itself for what is sent down of this word in this day and this time of distress and chaos. With that being said, we want you to sit back and enjoy. The topic of this evening we'll be dealing with is about language. I think about what the Lord Most High said down in the Quran when it said for every people to send a messenger speaking their language. But we've been given from Ahezaah now in this day and time that the language that we use is the devil's language. Everything is backwards. The meaning of words that most people deal with the primary meaning of words. They deal on the surface level. But as you search, and as Ahezaah taught us now through this message, that the dictionary is an important tool, as well as the holy books when seeking the Lord to guide you in understanding of its words. So with that being said, we hope you enjoy what you've heard and be educated as always. With that being said, my brothers.
If I may, I'd just like to address the Lord Holy-Apostle Deen to explain to us, opening up the show, the importance of learning accurately the use of the language of the religion, the language of our way of life, so that we can properly study, properly understand what we're reading, what we're researching, what is truth.
Well, first of all, language is one of the greatest vehicles that we have as human beings. And religion, well, we understand religion as our way of life,
Right.
not just for what we do in terms of worship and going to the houses of worship to
Right.
pray, so in our language can lead you astray, or language can have you saved. Language can have you, go to your death, or language can have you find a way to good health. When you think about organizations, let's say the departments like police department,
Right.
The government departments of politicians, medical departments, in the medical field, every field of professions have their own language. And it's like if you understand the language, then you can be guided right in that field, that craft, or whatever that field is. Now in the language of religion, when I say religion per se, I'm not just talking about just our way of life, but what people consider religion.
Right.
When they had their holy books.
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't understand that language, you can't by at all find your way to the right path. And like with the statement that you made, find kind of humorous. You said everything is backwards, and that we're speaking the devil's language, But in a sense, that's true. That's true, because everything much of what we say is guiding us away from the Lord Most High in our general language.
Okay.
Just like instead of us commonly in America, commonly saying "may the peace we know as being educated in our path of the way.
Right.
The peace is the creator, the
Right.
Lord, the master of all things.
Yeah.
And it's the source of peace.
Right.
So when we say may the peace be upon you, we asking for the essence or the spirit of the Lord of good to be upon you. We know that that's what we're saying.
Right.
But in general, when we walk down the street and someone say hello, we know that comes from hell, and hell is low. We know that through history they put those words together because holy men didn't put this American language together.
Right.
It was men who veered away from the path of truth that put this language together, and they gathered languages from all different nations, and they took many times took the good words or the things that would lead the language that would lead you to the goodliness of life. They took it and they besmeared it. They desecrated it. They broke it. You know, just like for instance, if someone called you a hermit, say this guy's a hermit, they put a negative connotation on that. You know what I mean? When a hermit, they referring to Hermes Trismegistus, Idris, Enoch, Thoth, you know, Jehuti, you know, a great man, messenger of the Lord Most High, messenger of the Lord El, from way back, you know, and so they're saying that you're a bad person for being a hermit. You being like Hermes, one who's very studious, one who's was very meditative, who stayed alone, who spent a lot of time thinking and remembering the Lord Most High and gathering information and from the holy path and passing this information on to the people of the world. So you know that's what you're talking about when you say that, you know, we have we speak the devil's language. You know.
Lord Holy-Apostle, I want to ask about the question about language and how it's been, how should we say it's been altered? Has it been played with, or was it created in a fashion to deceive people or to turn people astray from the straight path?
Most of the language that's spoken today. One of the reasons that the Christ has come down is because people have desecrated its language. When people, let's take for instance, you have people of the so-called religions. They call their language a holy language. If it's in the Bible, they say that's holy language. You know, if it's in the Holy Quran, they say that's holy. You know, but we know that if you read something and you don't understand, and if you don't have the holy connection, then what you're reading is not holy. Even if you read in the holy words. What you're reading is your own understanding of what you're reading. You understand? That's why some mystics, Sufis, saints of Islam used to say, in order for you to understand the Holy Quran in truth, you must receive it in the same manner that Prophet Muhammad received it. And I understood what they were saying. You see, if you get it from someone who only bring forth conjecture, you know, make believe or find their own understanding about something, you know, they just make up, you know, what's fashionable. You know, then you're going to be led astray. You're not going to have the right language if you follow that. You understand? But if the Lord send an angel or draw you up into the spirit realm or make it known to you in the realm of certainty, where today, people of religion don't believe in that unseen, in that realm of certainty.
That's true.
You know, and all the religions today, most of the people you hear, they'll talk about an angel coming to them, but they will never talk about them going to an angel. They'll never talk about them going up into the higher realms. Because if you don't believe, and if you don't have faith, and if you don't speak the right language, how can you get there? Because language is one of the greatest vehicles that's been given to us as human beings. And it really is a serious thing. You know, when you go to say your prayers, sometimes people ask for the wrong things because they speak in the wrong language.
That's true.
You know?
Yes, sir.
And going back to what I stated about, you know, speaking the holy language, what's holy, like Muslims today, well, I've heard some that I've known say that Arabic is holy.
Yes, I have.
When you know, come on. Arabic is just like English. They use profanity and everything else. In English, they use profanity and everything else in Arabic. So how are you going to make Arabic a holy language? What's holy about Arabic is when the Holy Lord spoke it to Muhammad or to the saints or whomever became enlightened. When they come to understand it through that holy word. See, the holy language is of every language that the Lord has sent the book down to the people of all time. And that the holy language is a holy understanding, a holy realization. You know, just think about this here. People used to, in the Nation of Islam back in the day, people used to say that certain individuals spoke the language of the birds. You know? But you know, language, every being has a language.
Yes.
You know, if you walk out into the open air fields, and you see the clouds getting real dark, mean, and ugly,
Yes.
what is them clouds saying to you?
Right.
Is, you know, we're about to storm on you.
Right.
Them clouds, that's the language of the clouds.
Right.
You see? So to understand the language of the birds is not hard. It's not difficult if you understand the habits of the birds.
Yeah, I was about to say that, you know.
Therefore, you understand the language of the birds. You know? But some people try to make a feat like that holy. You know, it's awe-inspiring. It's amazing. Oh, this guy knew the language of the birds. You know, well, I know the language of the weather.
Okay.
Right.
So
So true, you know.
You know.
Ahezaah is something that Ahezaah speaks about, mentioned in the Quran, when you talked about the modes and language of the things. Many times people, especially in Islam, when I first came to it, Ahezaah brought me to it, I should say. And back what you're saying about when people say their prayers, me as an English speaking person had a hard time from reciting the Arabic in the prayer into the mental in the English, trying to understand what I'm saying in the Arabic. And that took you a transformation in the time that you think that you offering your prayers and sincerity to your Lord, trying to give yourself up. But it was like, but I'm not an Arab in my mind, nor am I thinking. So am I really saying the prayers right? Am I really offering it right? And that was I'll give many people that come to Islam, they might not voice it, but I know they have that quiet in thought, you know, in their mind.
You know what I used to do when I used to recite the prayers in Arabic, I would learn a particular prayer or a piece from the Quran, but I would not want to recite it until first I had learned the so-called the translations of those.
Okay.
And then first I had to like pretty much mix the Arabic and the translation. So literally I would still be saying it in English. I'm just putting an Arabic pronunciation over the top of it.
You know, back in the early 70s, 72, 73, when I was studying Arabic, I did study Arabic for 3 months.
Okay.
And the reason I went to study it, and back then in New York, people wasn't speaking Arabic like they are today. You see brothers walking down the street, man. I don't know what they saying, but they sure do sound good. Sound like they singing a song sometimes, you know?
Yes.
And some of them even go so far as showing off. You know they showing off, you know? But, and that's speaking an evil language.
Okay.
See, with their intentions, that makes it evil.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
True. Yes,
if I speak the beautiful language of the Quran to beguile you, now I'm speaking evil.
Okay.
Satan speaks evil, and it speaks the holy language. It speaks the language, the written language of the holy.
Right.
But it does it in evil. You understand?
Yes.
So back then, I took up the Arabic only because I wanted to learn what I was saying or trying to say in Arabic. But what happened was, like I said back then, it was hardly any brothers, you know, used to be speaking in Arabic. As a matter of fact, back then, most of the brothers that I knew in Newark, in this area, East Orange, what have you, they were still in the Nation of Islam or going between Farrakhan and Warabdeen Muhammad, you know, or the Moorish Americans, you know, and the Masons, the brothers who was in the Masonry and stuff like that there. And they weren't into no Arabic. So I didn't have anyone to converse with. So as quick as I picked it up to learn 2 prayers, Al-Fatiha and Al-Ikhlas, the unity and the opening of the Holy Quran, I lost it again. But the problem that I had too was the fact of the matter, just like you speak it in Arabic, then you got to translate it in English, then you got to go back and see if you said the right thing in Arabic. By the time you get through all that, you haven't even prayed. All you've done is studied your words. You haven't even given the Lord time. You've given yourself time while you bowing down on your prayer carpet, you know? And my Lord favored me to not go and not stay involved in that, but to learn what I could in English. Because it taught me that the journey, the goal was not Arabic. The goal was not the Holy Quran. The goal was not the language, it was not the people, it was not the representatives.
Okay.
It was not the priests, it was not the sheikhs, it was not the imams, and it was definitely not the prophets.
Okay.
Nor the angels. The
Right.
goal is the endless being, the
Right.
infinite being. That's the goal, to reach that infinite being, our relationship with the infinite being. The Christians call it the Christ,
Okay.
but because of the language being
Because that language
misconstrued,
lost,
Misconstrued. That's what. Yeah.
here they go thinking Jesus is Christ.
Okay.
So they go from seeking Christ to seeking Jesus. Now the language have led them astray, and they swear that
Yeah,
they're
they do.
right.
Yes, they do.
You know, but that's why it's so important to understand the English language as an English speaking person, because
Right.
if you understand the English language, and you know, I always say you should get your holy books and
Yeah.
then get your dictionary
Yes.
and put it right next to you, and as you read, study these words, even words you think you understand.
I was just about to mention that.
Because there are words that you may think you understand that you really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I remember I had a conversation with you a few years ago, and you said something to me because we was talking about the language and words.
Yeah.
You said you remember you was at a court procession, and they were reading off a contract or something that was being read off in court, and they brought forth concerns about the wording. In one instance, part of the contract said, "I will do this," and another part of the contract said, "I shall do this."
Right.
You know, and Brother Fat Kid, we was smiling because we know that the word "shall" and "will" are two different words.
Okay.
So most of our people who are uneducated, they think, well, I shall do this mean I will do this.
Mhm.
You're right.
We think it's just not Freudian, but like the plays, the Romeo and Juliet plays, Shakespearean plays,
Right.
you know, thinking that it's the old English.
Yeah.
But shall means should. I
Right.
should do this.
Okay.
Mhm.
You know? And when you take a contract, a legal contract, and it said, well, if you do such and such and such and such, if you do A, B, C, D, then I shall do this. It didn't say I will do it.
Okay.
It said I should do this. And if you take that to the court of law and they get a sharp lawyer, the lawyers come and tell you, well, he didn't say that in this contract. It don't say that he will do it. Oh, yes, it do. It says he shall do it. Right. It said he should do it. But it didn't say he would do it. And it didn't say he had to do it.
Okay.
See, so even in that small portion, that which might seem insignificant to people, is very large. I shall or I will.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're talking about coming to your one Lord, something as major as your soul connection, something as major as your way of life, how you should be in order. You know, so
you know,
small thing is language.
I could say yes to that, but I would like to add that it's not just that something of such a great magnitude. I mean, in your everyday life is very important for you to understand every word that you speak and every word that you read, because in that it can take you so much further. I would challenge the audience who are religious people, the religious audience who study the Bibles and the Quran and the different holy books. I would challenge you people to get you a dictionary and study them words that you've been reading and think that you understand, and see if you find a difference in meaning. Yeah, just like we talked about the word abide.
I was just about to bring that up, but yeah.
You know, people thought abide meant, you know, what did you think it meant before?
My first,
I thought it meant obey or something to that.
Yeah, obey. A lot of people think
obey.
abide means to obey, but it don't mean obey. Not at all. Abide means to tolerate.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about when Allah says, Ahezaah says to abide my commands, you know, it's a different meaning than to obey my commands or to tolerate my commands.
And one of the things that always puzzled when you first brought it to it, the puzzling thing was, how do you tolerate Ahezaah's laws? That was the thing I found.
Why would you even think in terms of having to tolerate?
That's what I was like,
but the thing about it is, look how many people disobey because they cannot tolerate what the Lord sent down. How many people can tolerate the thought of me, this black small man, dark-skinned Nubian man, is the messenger prophet today? How many people can tolerate that?
Yeah,
How
that's
many
true.
how many Muslims you've known to come and say he's deluded, he's crazy,
That's
don't
many.
listen to this man.
That's-
You know?
Yes.
This, you know, I mean,
That would be
they can't tolerate it.
Yeah.
When we first came to this word, we was reading the book of Malachi.
Right.
This was after 1998.
After 98, right.
In May, when after January, when I notified Nation of Islam, that Farrakhan's people to Farrakhan that I was coming to see him, and they okayed it in Newark and there,
and they understood what you were saying,
and they understood what I was saying. I guess maybe they didn't believe I was really coming.
There we go. That's
but
the
then
rub,
when May came and I showed up for that week, they couldn't tolerate my presence. They couldn't tolerate seeing me.
Okay.
Right.
They couldn't tolerate the message that I was bringing, that they knew I was bringing. So therefore, Mr. Farrakhan hid from me for those 5 days.
Right.
Now, we come back and we read the book, and it said, Allah said, well, you fulfill prophecy in this.
Sure
they could not tolerate. And we read that passage in chapter 3 of the book of Holy Book of Malachi, and it said that who could abide his coming? Who could tolerate his coming?
That's right.
And only a few out of the nation, one in Newark and I can't even say anyone in Chicago, but one in Newark.
Yes.
And they immediately moved him out of Newark.
Oh, yes, sir.
Once they found out he tolerated what I had to say.
Okay.
You know? So, you know, it's not easy to tolerate the Lord's word or the Lord's law, even if you claim and swear that you are of the righteous, if you swear that you are committed, you swear on your shahada, you swear, it's not easy to tolerate, because here you go with hardship. You don't want people don't want the hardship.
Right.
They'd rather compromise. So when you compromise, that's a sign of you not being able to tolerate the Lord's word.
Interesting. I think much of the hardship that the people don't want to experience is actually the hardship of losing certain things that they've gotten used to, that they desire.
They can't abide losing what they've gained, and not realizing that much of what you gain is a loss.
Right.
You know, that's why the Lord said there are things that you may believe is good for you when they're bad for you, and things that you may believe is bad for you is good for you. But see, because Allah or Ahezaah says that it is the judge, and it tells people who read the book, the believers, that it is the judge. It alone is the judge. And for us not to be the judge of things, because we can't judge. How many of us can tolerate standing back, not making judgments? You know, you sit down and you start speaking and you make judgments. How many people out there in the audience right now are not sitting making judgments of me and what I'm saying?
That's true.
You know, because historically, men and women have disliked the appearances of the prophets, the communities that the prophets come from, or the tribes that the prophets come from, and they say, well, he can't be, you know, the one. Just like we had the Ahmadiyya community, East Coast representatives of East Coast come represent 12 million. They said the prince from Washington D.C. sent them, and then they came and seen what I looked like and heard me, and they couldn't tolerate it. They couldn't tolerate what I was saying. They could tolerate what I was saying, but they couldn't tolerate it coming from me.
That's what the problem is.
And when I answered all their questions and gave them more questions that asked me that they did not even think of themselves, they were taking, but I wasn't an Indian. I wasn't an Indian. I wasn't like Ghulam Ahmed. You know, and who was the worst of those 5 brothers that came? The African American brother hated me, looked at me, and could not tolerate my appearance, could not tolerate the fact that I was younger than him, could not tolerate that Ahezaah gave me a command of its word. Could not tolerate the fact that none of them could stump me in their question, and that could not tolerate the fact that I knew what they was going to ask me before they asked me. Therefore, all 5 of them had to put their papers away.
They sure enough did.
And they even mentioned it.
You started answering questions that they had on the paper.
I know.
And I thought about what Ahezaah says again in the Quran when it said that they don't hate you, Muhammad. It's the message that you bring. And because you of the particular tribe or you particular nationality, you particular African American, Indian descent, that people, many black African Americans don't acknowledge the other side of them.
That's right.
You know, and what happens is that people look at you and they said, like Ahezaah says in the Quran, Ahezaah would have picked the best of us. Who is the best? You know, but they take the language because I'm the rich or the
Yeah.
Because they don't understand the language. They don't know
Right.
what best means.
Yeah.
They think best is what's most fashionable.
Right.
They think best is what's most acceptable by the people. And it could be the worst people that's most
Right.
accepting of something that's bad, which they consider to be the best. Ahezaah is the one that manifests what's best. And
Right.
what's best could be something that hurts us.
Okay. Yeah.
Something that we can't tolerate or don't want to
like
tolerate.
truth.
like truth.
Like truth.
Like truth, exactly.
Yes.
Like the way people, the advertisement says "no pain, no gain." So
Sure enough,
that's
do.
what it's saying,
Yes.
right? You know, like that.
Yes.
I was going to ask the question, Lord Holy-Apostle, about how, but I thought you looks like you touched on it.
Well, let's go with it.
How does the how is it that people are lost by language? We were talking about language, lost by language to make themselves deluded of mind, to think that their possessions are the things that are most important. Or
what was the greatest thing that the slave masters pushed against the slaves? What was the greatest thing they pushed against the slaves?
I'm thinking fear. Is it fear? Fear.
To not read.
That's what it puts, yeah. Reading, right.
They did not want them to read, and they did not want them to learn the language.
Right.
And one of the first things they did to the African slaves was took away their language. They separated them from their children and then did not educate their children. They would not let them have their national or their natural language, their forefathers' language, and then they gave them a false language. They did the same things to the Native American Indians.
Sure enough, did.
First of all, they called them Indians, and they weren't Indians. And then we've accepted the fact that they call us Indians. You know, even myself, I don't wholly accept it, but I know that that's what they call us. You understand? But Native Americans.
Right.
And then they took those who feared them, those who sided with them, which weren't my people. I'm from the Seminole tribe.
Right.
And they changed their language. They got them to follow their language. And what is this nation doing today all around the world? They're trying to get the people to accept their language. When they go through the internet and what have you, they want to make the internet, the English, the major language of the internet. They had, from what I understand, France for them. And then France said, our language is just as good as your language.
Right.
And they said, well, I heard guys on TV, you know, because TV is a powerful instrument. They talking about, well, France gonna be out on an island by themselves. They ready to can France, their ally, because France did not want to take their language.
Yeah.
See, language is a very, very important thing. When you go and sit around these elite intellectuals,
right,
and they get to talking, and they purposely use words that they believe you don't understand.
Right.
To lose you from the conversation.
So true.
You know? And I've had some situations in my younger days where I've sat with people, Caucasians, who were thought they were intellectually above me. Not realizing that regardless of my legal education or my public education, I had another education. I studied harder on my own than I ever studied for school.
Who of you want to do things right? To keep up with keeping your lives tight. Tight as in being right with the truth of true insight. Who of you want to do things right? Who of you want to truly succeed?